Hi everyone, today let's talk about earnings. Then we'll go over the charts, and then we'll go over my positions going into tomorrow. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I've been making videos like this every single day, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So Alphabet missed on the top and bottom lines as YouTube ad revenue came in a little short. Something we probably could have predicted based on the Snap earnings being pretty terrible. So ad revenue is decreasing across the markets, which you should expect to happen for Meta as well. You can see here, revenues did decline here for YouTube, while analysts expected about a 3% growth. Looking at the actual results, they earned a little bit less than expected, revenue was less than expected. Advertising revenue was a big part of why they came up short. And you can see the cloud did overperform in terms of revenue, and then traffic acquisitions costs also were less than expected. So revenue growth slowed to 6% versus 41%, which of course, in my opinion, could have been expected. Alphabet's been growing extremely fast, partly due to the COVID lockdowns and everyone being at home and basically being on the internet. Alphabet certainly benefited from that. And now that that situation is not the same, their ad revenue and their business is slowing down a little bit. Going over Microsoft really quickly here, they did beat on the top and bottom lines, but it does say that their cloud revenue is also slowing down. So two key players, we have Microsoft and Alphabet being in the cloud space, and so far cloud growth is slowing down. Earnings per share, a little bit above expectations, and overall revenue above expectations. Total revenue grew 11% year over year, and net income fell by 14%. Overall, not too bad for Microsoft, but the stock is falling as a result. Moving over to the S&P 500, you can see we're kind of coming up into that resistance zone. We had the big move up early in the day with a slow continuation up to around 385. I certainly still think that there is more upside here, and the longer term charts are still representing more upside. We just might be a little bit overbought here in the short term, and with this little bit of after hours selling due to the weaker earnings, I think we might get a retrace, maybe a few points lower, before we get any kind of continuation to the upside. But you can see we have a little bit of a structure here, still looks pretty bullish in my opinion, even if the earnings are slowing down. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, you can see still very bullish, big up day, very similar to the S&Ps, but it did come down a little bit more. Alphabet and Microsoft are a bigger part of the NASDAQ versus the S&P 500, and therefore it is more affected. I still think there's some pretty good upside. I think we could get a retest of the 300 level. It does seem like a pretty good target here based on where we've been recently. We're kind of coming in and retesting this early October highs. And if we can get back up to these mid-September prices at $300, I think that would probably be the culmination of this rally. But that would still give us some pretty decent upside from here, about 20 points or so from where we are now. Moving over to the Russell. The Russell was unaffected by either of these earnings reports, so you can see it's still sitting right at the highs, just above 178 here. And there's nothing saying that this is going to stop. This still looks really strong. Just getting started on this rally here on the hourly chart. If you're trying to look at price targets at this point, if we get above this 180 level, I think we could be reaching for that 190, 191 level. That would be the lows here in August. Right currently at the lows in September, the beginning of September here, as well as middle of September pricing. So if we can get through these two levels here, I think we can hit 185, maybe get all the way up to that 190 level. But those are the supply zones that I'm looking for right now, 185 and 190. Then looking over at Google here, you can see we've been in this big downtrend. The stock topped out around $150 per share, currently trading at 97 in the after hours. It had been all the way up to 105 on the day, but all the way back down to its lows here for the year at 97.50, about $1 or so higher than its lows. But it certainly seems like it's going to take those out and create further selling pressure in the markets. And then looking over at Microsoft, it got all the way up to 252 a little bit after hours, after closing at about 251, and it's back down to 244.50. So not a big sell-off, down a little bit from its earnings, but this structure is still looking pretty bullish, and we're sitting right at that 144 EMA. We can get a little bit of a continuation up to the upside. We can get all of these moving averages moving in the right direction, which could present a longer-term bottom here for Microsoft. For top gainers on the day, we have a new one. We got Roku on here, gaining almost 10% on the day. Started off around $50, got all the way up to above $55 per share before selling off a little bit. Of course, this is an ad-based business, so as ads are going down, as we saw in Snapchat and Alphabet. Of course, Roku is going to be affected. The stock has been beaten down massively. It was all the way up at over $485 for the highs. And now this is a $54 stock. So definitely don't jump into this right away, despite having a really good green day, maybe a double bottom type pattern here. But really what this says to me is that growth is starting to make a comeback, and they're starting to have some pretty big up days in these high volatility, high growth stocks. Moving over to a channel favorite for me, Lululemon. Blew right through that resistance as I thought that it might, went way higher than I thought it was going to. I thought we'd get some resistance in this 305, maybe 310 range, maybe get a retest of this. And it's certainly possible we could still get a retest of this level somewhere in the 305, 308 range. But huge green day, up over 7%, up to $320 per share. Started the day close to $300 per share. So definitely made the profit that I wanted on this trade. And definitely could have made a lot more based on how aggressively this moved to the upside. So I think there's more upside here in Lulu. I think this is probably a $350 stock, maybe $360, somewhere in this previous high range, $350 to $360. But definitely keep an eye out on this stock. If we get a retrace and a good entry, I will be re-entering this trade. Right now, it's a little bit overbought for me. You can see here on the RSI getting into that overbought territory. Still have green momentum, still strong momentum here on the MACD, but this is a little bit concerning here on the RSI on the 4-hour chart. So last time we were overbought, it was at this 350 range and we had a huge sell-off from there. So just be a little bit careful here. Maybe wait for a little bit of a dip down. Maybe if we hit that 50 level here on the RSI, that would be something that I'd look for a good entry here on Lulu. Moving over to JNK, this is my leading indicator for the desire for growth in the markets. You can see still looks very bullish, moving upwards. The slope is increasing here. Not overbought yet, so we have some more upside. Resistance is still pretty far away, a couple of points away. We are kind of at this previous level of resistance here, but I do expect this to go through, and I expect to hit this level of resistance up here, which if we do hit that, then I would be a little bit more hesitant continuing to trade bullishly on growth. So continue to watch JNK. It's a good indicator to see what the appetite for growth is in the markets. Similarly, for TLT, you can see we had some divergence going on Monday, lower lows with a higher strength here. And then we got that rally, a big rally in bonds here, was bullish for stocks. As TLT rallied, so did the rest of the markets. And hopefully we get at least a continuation up to maybe the 297 range at this next EMA. That would be extremely bullish for stocks. And I certainly think that that is possible here in the short term. Next up, we have the dollar, or DXY, doing exactly what we wanted it to. Broke through this previous level of resistance really aggressively. This caused bonds to rally and the rest of the stock market to rally, really. So we got below this resistance that had been support for several previous sessions. Now, if we can get below where we are right now, then we should be looking for another 1 or maybe up to 2 points lower than we are right now. If we get past this 110, all the way down to 108. That should be very bullish for stocks. Remember, this is still a very bullish pattern here on the dollar. It's been rallying for a long time, which is why this seems like we could get more selling pressure here. It might not be all right away. We are a little bit oversold here on the RSI, so we could get a bit of a retrace, maybe back up to this 111, 111.30 range before we get that continuation down. So be a little bit careful here, but the structure is still looking very bullish for stocks based on where the dollar is going now. And then moving over to DXY, again, doing everything that we want it to do. Momentum is still growing to the downside. I expect to get this 2650 level retested here right at the 144 EMA. We should get at least into that region, similar to what we saw here in June into July. If we do get that move, that should be still bullish for stocks. It could certainly go lower than that, something like we saw in this previous dip. But there's certainly potential we could see some support and maybe a little bit of choppy action, kind of like we saw here in the middle of September. So just be aware of that. Pay attention to what we see here on the VIX. But in my opinion, I think we're going to break through that level and get a little bit lower here. I don't know if we're going to go all the way down to below 20 or not, but certainly a little bit lower than where we are right now. Moving over to my positions, you can see I had a very good day, up a little bit more than $1,000 here, which I should be on a green day as strong as today. Honestly, I probably should have been up more. $5 here on the Qs, a little bit more than $4 here on IWM. This is probably where I didn't make as much as I could have. It's a little harder trading here in an IRA, can't leverage as much. But again, still pretty good day. Of course, the markets are down a little bit after hours, The Qs are down to around 280.50. So there is a little bit of risk here for me. I might get assigned on these 281 puts. The market's a little bit below that right now. So you can see a little bit of a loser here. 279 calls. This was a loser. This probably won't be a loser tomorrow. Hopefully I still get a sign on these calls. I do want these shares to go away. 284 calls. That's going to be the real question mark here. I'm probably going to have to roll those down and roll those out in time. That way I keep at least one covered call going. I don't want to roll those down too much, of course. I don't want to lose money on those shares. And I still have $2 credit here with about $1 left. So I had gained $130 that credit. So another $1 left. And if I roll that down, I can still get a little bit more credit out of that position. Probably not going to roll it down too much. Again, hopefully I get a sign on these 279 calls. And then I can roll this one out in time to get a little bit more credit and keep one covered call going. And then the big question is whether I get a sign on these 281 puts or if we see a little bit more of a rally tomorrow morning. I'm still assuming that I'm not going to get a sign on these 279 calls, which is certainly still an assumption that could certainly happen. If we do get a little bit more of a down day tomorrow and it's just kind of bad timing, then I might be stuck with a few more shares than I want. But of course, I will be selling covered calls on all of those positions. I don't want any more than 300 shares going forward after tomorrow. So we'll see at the end of the day what I end up getting assigned on. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of these stocks. Is Google and Microsoft going to continue downward? Or is this a good buying opportunity? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Of course, this is not financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.